I saved a dying alien in the Arizona desert. My only reward was a vision of Jesus and a warning about what's coming. Forget everything the church told you. This being knew Christ. He showed me the final prophecy they never wrote down, the one about love, fear, and the choice that will divide humanity. What he revealed will shatter your faith or rebuild it completely, but you need to hear it all. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that reveal hidden truths. Let's begin. It was winter of 2022. Emily Carter was driving alone through the Arizona desert. Dark night, thunder tearing through the sky. She was 39 years old, a nurse, and too exhausted to feel anything anymore. Coming back from the community clinic where she volunteered. Another day taking care of people. Another day feeling empty inside. Her mother had died of cancer 6 months earlier. And with her, Emily's faith died too. The rain was brutal that night, coming down in thick sheets that made it hard to see 5 feet ahead. The windshield wipers worked frantically, squeaking back and forth, but they couldn't keep up. Emily gripped the steering wheel tighter, her knuckles white. Her whole body ached, not just from the long shift at the clinic, but from something deeper, something that medicine couldn't fix. You know that feeling when you're so tired you can't even think straight anymore? When your body is just going through the motions? That was Emily. Every single day. She had thrown herself into work after her mother passed. 16-hour shifts, weekends, holidays, anything to avoid going home to that empty house, anything to avoid the silence where all the questions lived. Questions like, why do good people suffer? Why did her mother pray every day and still die in agony? Why did Emily spend years studying medicine only to watch helpless as cancer ate away at the person she loved most? Where was God in all of that? The thunder roared again, louder this time. Emily flinched. Her hands trembled slightly on the wheel. She thought about her mother's last words. Keep helping people, sweetheart. That's what matters. But what if it didn't matter? What if nothing mattered? Emily blinked back tears she'd been holding for months. The road ahead blurred, and not just from the rain. She was so lost in thought she almost didn't see it. The light. It came suddenly, without warning. A brilliant blue light that fell from the sky like a burning star. It crashed down somewhere on the mountain range to her left, not far, maybe a mile away. Emily's car shook violently. The steering wheel jerked in her hands. The radio crackled with static, then went completely dead. The headlights flickered. Her heart pounded in her chest. What the hell was that? She hit the brakes, hard. The car skidded slightly on the wet pavement before coming to a stop on the shoulder. Emily sat there, breathing hard, staring out at the darkness. Fear and curiosity fought inside her. The rational part of her brain said, drive away, go home, don't get involved. But another part, the part that had become a nurse in the first place, said, someone might need help. She looked at the mountain. The blue light was still there, pulsing, not like fire, not like an explosion. It was steady, rhythmic, almost like breathing, like something alive. Emily grabbed her phone. No signal. Of course, out here in the desert, coverage was spotty at best. She chewed her lip, thinking. Then she popped the trunk and got out of the car. The rain hit her immediately, cold and sharp. She pulled her jacket tighter and grabbed her emergency kit from the back. Flashlight, first aid supplies, blanket, the things a nurse always keeps close, just in case. Emily stood there for a moment, rain streaming down her face, looking up at that strange blue light on the mountain. Something told her this wasn't just a plane crash or a meteorite. This was something else, something impossible. But she had spent the last 6 months feeling useless, watching her mother die and being unable to do anything about it. If someone, anyone, was hurt up there, she had to try. She started walking. The terrain was rough, rocks and desert scrub, all slick with rain. Her sneakers kept slipping. Her flashlight beam cut through the darkness, but the rain made it hard to see. The blue light guided her, pulsing, calling. It took her 20 minutes to reach the crash site. 20 minutes of stumbling through mud and thorns. Her legs burned. Her lungs ached, but she kept going. When she finally crested the ridge, she stopped. Her breath caught in her throat. There, in a small crater of scorched earth, was the source of the light. And it wasn't a plane. It wasn't anything she recognized. Emily took a step closer, her flashlight shaking in her hand. The blue light pulsed brighter, and she realized something that made her blood run cold. This wasn't just a crash. This was a landing. and something had survived it. Emily moved carefully down into the crater. The mud sucked at her shoes with every step. Her heart was hammering so hard she could feel it in her ears. The blue light was coming from something on the ground, something that looked almost human. Almost, but not quite. She knelt down in the mud, her nurse instincts kicking in before her fear could stop her. The being lay on its side, curled up. Its skin, if you could call it skin, was translucent, not invisible, but you could almost see through it, like looking at someone through frosted glass, and it glowed, from the inside out, a soft blue-white light that pulsed with each shallow breath. Emily's hands hovered over the being, unsure. She'd treated hundreds of patients, gunshot wounds, heart attacks, car accidents, but this was beyond anything in her medical training. The being's chest rose and fell weakly. There was a wound there, dark and spreading, not blood exactly, but something like it, a luminous fluid that seemed to shimmer and fade. Emily reached out slowly. Her fingers trembled. When she touched the being's shoulder, she gasped. The skin was warm, and the moment she made contact, she heard it. A voice, not in her ears, in her mind. "Please, don't be afraid." Emily jerked her hand back. Her flashlight fell into the mud. She scrambled backward, her breath coming in short panics. No, this wasn't real. This couldn't be real. "I need help," the voice continued, soft and gentle. "I bring a message." Emily pressed her hands to her temples. Was she losing her mind? Had grief finally broken her? She looked at the being again. Its eyes opened slowly. They weren't human eyes. They were larger, darker, but they held something familiar. Pain, fear, hope, the same things she saw in patients every day. "My name is Aaron," the voice said, clearer now. "I crashed. I'm hurt. Please." Emily's breathing slowed. She was a nurse. This was what she did. Hurt was hurt, no matter who or what it came from. She reached out again, this time steadier, checking for vitals the best way she knew how. The being's pulse was there, faint but rhythmic. Temperature was hard to gauge, but the wound on its chest was bad. Real bad. You're talking inside my head," Emily whispered out loud. "It's the only way I can communicate," Aaron replied gently. "I'm sorry if it frightens you." Emily swallowed hard. Frightened didn't even begin to cover it, but under the fear, something else stirred. Curiosity and compassion. The same compassion that had made her pull over in the first place. She looked at the wound again. If she didn't do something soon, this being Aaron would die. She had her emergency kit. Not much, but enough to stabilize him. Maybe. Emily took a deep breath. "Okay," she said out loud, her voice shaky but determined. "I'm going to help you, but you have to stay calm, and you have to trust me." "I already do," Aaron said softly. There was something in that voice, something peaceful, that made Emily believe him. She opened her kit and got to work, cleaning the wound as best she could, applying pressure, bandaging. Her hands moved on autopilot, the same hands that had held her mother's hand in those final days, the same hands that had failed to save her. But maybe, just maybe, they could save someone else tonight. As she worked, the rain began to ease. The thunder grew distant, and the blue light around Aaron pulsed a little brighter, like his body was responding to her touch, to her care. When she finished, Emily sat back in the mud, exhausted. She looked at the being in front of her, this impossible, glowing, telepathic being, and she made a decision. "I'm taking you home," she said quietly. "You can't stay out here." "Why are you helping me?" Aaron asked, his mental voice filled with something like wonder. Emily thought about it. She thought about her mother, about all the prayers that went unanswered, about the faith she'd lost, and she said the only thing that felt true. Because you're hurt, and when someone's hurt, you help them. That's just what you do. Even though I'm different, even though you're different. Emily wrapped her coat around Aaron's shivering form. She didn't know what he was. She didn't know where he came from. But in that moment, it didn't matter. He was a patient, and she was a nurse. And that was enough. Emily's house was small, just a one-bedroom place on the edge of Flagstaff. Nothing fancy, but it was home. She helped Aaron inside, one careful step at a time. His body was light, lighter than it should have been, like he was made of something less dense than human flesh. The living room became a makeshift hospital. Emily cleared the coffee table, pushed the couch to the side, grabbed blankets and pillows from the bedroom. She worked quickly, efficiently, the way she'd been trained, the way she always did when someone needed help. Aaron lay on the makeshift bed, his translucent skin still glowing faintly. Emily stood over him, watching. His skin, it was changing, shifting colors, blue when the lamp was on, softer, almost silver when she turned it off, like his body was reacting to the light around him, adapting. "Does it hurt?" Emily asked out loud, then felt silly. He couldn't answer with his mouth. "Not as much now." Aaron's voice came into her mind, gentle as always. "You helped." Emily nodded, still getting used to the telepathy thing. It was strange, really strange, but also not scary anymore. She pulled out her medical supplies, antiseptic, gauze, bandages, things meant for human wounds. She had no idea if they'd work on him, but she had to try. As she cleaned the wound on his chest, she noticed something incredible. The tissue was regenerating, slowly but visibly. The torn edges of the wound were knitting themselves back together, cell by cell, like watching a time-lapse of healing. "How are you doing this?" Emily whispered. "I'm not," Aaron replied. "You are." Emily stopped, her hands hovering over his chest. "What do you mean?" "Your touch, your care. It carries something powerful. Love." Emily felt her throat tighten. Love. She hadn't thought about love in months, not since her mother died, maybe not even before that. Love felt like something distant, something that belonged to other people, people who hadn't watched their mother waste away, people who still believed prayers got answered. "You are good, Emily," Aaron said softly in her mind. "And love is what heals me." Tears pricked at Emily's eyes. She blinked them back and kept working, cleaning, bandaging, checking vitals that she didn't fully understand. But with each touch, with each gentle movement, something shifted inside her. A calmness, a peace she hadn't felt in years. It was like all the noise in her head, the guilt, the anger, the endless questions, went quiet, just for a moment, just long enough for her to breathe. Aaron watched her with those large dark eyes, not judging, just seeing her, really seeing her. "You carry great pain," he said after a while. Emily's hands stilled. She didn't look at him. "Everyone carries pain," she said quietly. "Yes, but yours is fresh and heavy." A tear slipped down Emily's cheek before she could stop it. She wiped it away quickly, trying to stay professional. But Aaron wasn't a regular patient, and this wasn't a regular night. "Your mother," he continued gently. "You blame yourself." Emily's breath hitched. "How do you—" "I can feel it. In your energy. In your touch." She sat back on her heels, her hands shaking now. "I couldn't save her," Emily said, her voice breaking. "I'm a nurse. I'm supposed to help people. And I couldn't save my own mother." The words came out like a confession, like something she'd been holding inside for so long it had turned toxic. "Fear destroys more than time ever could," Aaron said softly. Emily looked at him, confused. "Fear. You fear you are not enough, that your love, your care, your skill, none of it matters. But that fear is a lie." The tears came faster now. Emily couldn't stop them. She covered her face with her hands and cried, really cried. For the first time since the funeral, all the guilt she'd been carrying, all the anger at God, at the universe, at herself, it poured out of her like poison from a wound. Aaron didn't say anything more. He just let her cry, let her feel it. Emily sobbed until her chest ached, until there were no more tears left. And when she finally looked up, she felt lighter, not happy, not healed, but lighter, like she'd been carrying a weight she didn't even know was there. And now part of it was gone. She wiped her eyes, embarrassed. "I'm sorry," she muttered. "That was unprofessional. That was human," Aaron said gently. "And beautiful." Emily let out a shaky laugh. "Beautiful, right." She stood up, stretching her sore legs. Her whole body ached from the night, from the hike, the fear, the tears. But underneath it all, there was something new, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope, just a tiny spark of it, but it was there. Emily walked to the window and looked out at the desert. The storm had passed. The sky was clearing. Stars were starting to peek through the clouds. She closed her eyes and did something she hadn't done in months. She prayed, not asking for anything, not begging God to fix things or explain things, just praying, quietly, gratefully, for this strange, impossible night, for this wounded being in her living room, for the reminder that compassion still lived inside her, even when she thought it had died with her mother. "Thank you," Aaron said softly. Emily opened her eyes. For what? For choosing love when it would have been easier to choose fear. Emily smiled, small but real. "You're welcome." Morning came slowly. Emily woke up on the couch, stiff and disoriented. For a second she forgot. Then she saw Aaron, still lying on the makeshift bed, still glowing faintly in the early light. Oh, right, last night really happened. Emily sat up, rubbing her eyes. Her whole body ached, but Aaron looked better. The wound on his chest was almost completely healed. Just a faint mark remained where the gash had been. "How do you feel?" Emily asked out loud. "Stronger," Aaron replied. "Thanks to you." Emily stood and stretched, her joints popping. She went to the kitchen and made coffee. Strong coffee. Because if she was going to have a conversation with an alien, she needed caffeine. When she came back, Aaron was sitting up. His movements were careful but steady. Emily handed him a glass of water. He took it, studying it curiously before taking a sip. "This is pleasant," he said. Emily almost laughed. "It's just water." "Water is never just anything," Aaron said seriously. "It sustains life. That makes it sacred." Emily sat down across from him, cradling her coffee mug. "So," she said, trying to sound casual, "you gonna tell me what you're doing here?" Aaron tilted his head slightly, a gesture that was almost human. "I travel," he said simply, "between worlds, observing, learning. Like an explorer? Something like that. My people study civilizations, how they grow, how they love, how they destroy themselves." Emily felt a chill. "That's cheerful." "It's truth," Aaron said gently. "Some worlds choose love, they thrive. Others choose fear, they collapse." He paused. "Your world is at a crossroads." Emily stared at him. "What does that mean?" "It means," Aaron said, "that humanity is deciding right now which path to take." Emily took a long sip of coffee. This was too much for 7 a.m. "Okay," she said slowly. "But why crash here? Why now? Why me?" Aaron's eyes met hers. "Because you still choose to help even when you're broken inside." Emily's breath caught. "I didn't choose you randomly, Emily. I was drawn here, to this place, to you, because your heart, despite everything, still beats with compassion." Emily felt her eyes sting again. She was really tired of crying. "I don't feel very compassionate," she admitted. "I feel empty." "Emptiness is just space," Aaron said softly. "Space for something new to grow." He leaned forward slightly. "On my world and many others, love is not just an emotion. It's a measurable force. It heals. It creates. It sustains life itself." Emily frowned. "That sounds like science fiction." "Your science will discover it eventually," Aaron said. "But some of your people already knew." "Who?" Aaron was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that made Emily's heart stop. "Jesus." Emily set her coffee mug down carefully. Her hands were shaking. "What did you just say?" "Jesus," Aaron repeated calmly. "The one you call Christ. I know him." "You know him?" "Not personally, but his teachings reached far beyond your world." Emily's mind was spinning. This couldn't be real. This had to be exhaustion, grief, some kind of breakdown. "How?" she whispered. "How could you possibly?" "Because he taught the same truth we teach," Aaron said simply. "That love sustains life, that fear announces the end, that the kingdom of God is not somewhere far away. It's inside every living being." Emily's whole body went cold. Those words, she'd heard them before, in Sunday school, in sermons, but they'd always felt distant, abstract. Now, hearing them from this glowing being in her living room, they felt real. "But the church says many things," Aaron interrupted gently. "Some true, some not. Jesus didn't come to create religion. He came to remind humanity of its power, the power to heal, to love, to create. He showed you miracles not to prove he was special, but to show you that you are." Emily couldn't speak. Her throat was too tight, her mind too full. "You asked why I came to you," Aaron said softly. "Because you're ready to remember." A shiver ran down Emily's spine. Not fear, something else. Recognition. Like some deep part of her, some part she'd forgotten, was waking up. "Remember what?" she whispered. Aaron smiled. It was the first time she'd seen him smile. that love is not weakness. It's the strongest force in the universe. And that you, Emily Carter, carry that force inside you. Emily sat there, stunned. Outside, the morning sun climbed higher. Birds began to sing. The world kept turning. But inside that small house in Flagstaff, Arizona, everything had changed. Emily looked at Aaron, this impossible, glowing, telepathic being, and for the first time in 6 months, she felt something she thought she'd lost forever. Faith, not in religion, not in churches or prayers or answers from above, but faith in something simpler, something true, that love matters, that compassion heals, that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as broken as she thought. "Tell me more," Emily said quietly, and Aaron did. It was 3 in the morning when Aaron called to her. Emily had been dozing on the couch. Light sleep, the kind where every sound wakes you up. "Emily," his voice whispered in her mind, "I need to show you something." She sat up, rubbing her eyes. "Now?" "Yes, while the world sleeps, while your mind is quiet." Emily stood and walked over to him. Aaron was sitting up, his skin glowing brighter than usual, almost golden now instead of blue. "Touch my forehead," he said gently, "and don't be afraid." Emily hesitated. "What's going to happen?" "You'll see what I see, what I know, what I was sent to share." Emily took a deep breath, then reached out slowly and placed her palm against Aaron's forehead. The moment she made contact, the room exploded with light, golden light, not harsh or blinding, warm, like sunlight from the inside out. Emily gasped as the walls of her living room dissolved. Everything around her faded into brilliance, and then she saw mountains, huge snow-capped peaks stretching endlessly, oceans, deep blue waters rolling under perfect skies, forests so green they almost hurt to look at, and people everywhere, different faces, different clothes, different times, but all connected somehow, all part of something bigger. Emily felt like she was floating, watching the whole world unfold beneath her. And then she saw him, a figure walking through the golden light, tall, gentle, radiating warmth. His face was kind, so kind it made Emily's heart ache. Jesus. She knew it was him, not because of paintings she'd seen in church, not because of statues or stories. She just knew, the way you know your own name. He smiled at her, and that smile, God, that smile, it held no judgment, no disappointment, just pure, unconditional love, the kind of love Emily had been searching for her whole life. "Do not seek the kingdom outside yourselves," his voice said, not in her mind like Aaron's, but everywhere, in the light, in the air, in her own heartbeat. It is here, in every act of love, in every moment of compassion. The voice sounded like music and truth woven together. Emily wanted to speak, to ask questions, to fall to her knees, but she couldn't move. She could only listen. "The kingdom is not a place you go to when you die," Jesus continued softly. "It is a state of being you choose while you live." Emily felt tears streaming down her face. "This is the final prophecy," Aaron's voice joined in, gentle and steady. "The one that was never written down, never recorded. Because it was meant to be lived, not read." The scene shifted. Emily saw the world, her world from above. Cities glowing, some in brilliant light, others in shadow. Not as punishment, not as God's wrath, but as choice. "The world will go through purification," Aaron explained. "Not fire, not flood, but truth. Every person will feel the weight of their choices. And those who choose love, who practice compassion, forgiveness, kindness, they will sustain the light." Emily watched as the bright cities grew brighter, people helping each other, healing each other, choosing connection over fear. And the dark cities, they didn't burn, they just faded, like shadows when you turn on a light. "This is not about being perfect," Jesus said, his voice wrapping around her like a warm blanket. "It is about trying, about choosing love even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." Emily saw images flash before her eyes, a mother forgiving her child, a stranger helping someone on the street, a doctor holding a patient's hand. Small acts, simple acts, but each one glowed with the same golden light she was surrounded by now. "Love is not an emotion," Aaron said quietly. "It is energy. The energy that holds universes together. Your scientists will discover this eventually, but you can know it now." Emily wanted to stay here forever, in this light, in this peace. But slowly, the vision began to fade. The mountains and oceans blurred. Jesus' figure grew distant, though his smile remained. "Remember," his voice echoed, "the kingdom is within you. Always has been, always will be." And then Emily was back, in her living room, on her knees, her hand still touching Aaron's forehead. She pulled away, gasping. Her whole body was shaking, not from fear, from something bigger than fear, from awe, from wonder, from truth. Tears poured down her face, but these weren't tears of grief. They were tears of gratitude, of recognition, of coming home to something she'd forgotten. "You understand now," Aaron said softly. It wasn't a question. Emily nodded, unable to speak. She understood. She finally understood. The church had taught her to look up for God, to wait for heaven, to pray for salvation from somewhere far away. But Jesus had been trying to say something different all along. God wasn't far away. The kingdom wasn't later. It was here, now, inside her, inside everyone, activated by one simple thing: love. Real, active, daily love. Emily sat back on her heels, wiping her eyes. "Why didn't they write that down?" she whispered. "Why isn't that in the Bible?" "Some truths are too powerful for paper," Aaron said gently. "They must be experienced, lived, passed from heart to heart." That was always the plan. Emily looked at him, this strange, glowing being from another world, and she felt overwhelming gratitude, not just for the vision, but for the reminder that love matters, that compassion heals, that we're not separate from God, we're part of God, every single one of us. "The purification is coming," Aaron said quietly, "not to punish, but to awaken. And those who remember how to love will light the way for others." Emily nodded slowly. She didn't know exactly what that meant yet, but she knew one thing. She wasn't empty anymore. That void her mother's death had left, it was filling with something new, not happiness, not yet, but purpose, understanding, hope. "Thank you," Emily whispered. Aaron smiled. "Thank you for being ready to see." The next morning, something changed. Emily woke to the sound of coughing, harsh, painful coughing. She bolted upright. Aaron was hunched over, his body shaking. The golden glow had faded back to dim blue, and he looked weak, weaker than he'd been since she found him. "Aaron!" Emily rushed to his side. "I'm sorry." His mental voice was strained. "The vision, it took more energy than I expected." Emily's nurse instincts kicked in immediately. She checked his pulse, fast and irregular. His skin was cool to the touch. The wound on his chest, which had nearly healed, looked raw again. Fear gripped her heart. "No," she whispered. "No, you can't." She couldn't lose him, not after everything, not after what he'd shown her. Without thinking, Emily grabbed his hands. They were cold, too cold. "Stay with me," she said out loud, her voice shaking. "Please, stay with me." And then something happened, something impossible. Heat, warmth spreading through her palms. Not from him, from her. Emily gasped as energy, gentle, powerful, undeniable, flowed from her hands into Aaron's body. It wasn't painful. It was beautiful, like sunlight moving through water. She felt it travel up her arms, through her chest, and down into her palms. A river of warmth, of life, of love. Aaron's eyes widened. The blue glow of his skin brightened, strengthened. Emily watched, stunned, as the wound on his chest began to close. Slowly at first, then faster. The torn tissue knit itself back together. The bruising faded. The raw edges became smooth, healed skin. Within minutes, the wound was gone. Completely gone. Aaron took a deep, steady breath. His color returned. His strength returned. He looked at Emily with something like wonder. "You did it," he said softly. Emily pulled her hands back, staring at them. They looked normal. Same hands she'd had her whole life, but they'd just done something impossible. "How?" she whispered. "How did I do that?" Aaron sat up slowly, fully healed now. "You remembered who you are," he said simply. Emily shook her head. "I'm a nurse. I help people, but I can't." "You can," Aaron interrupted gently. "You always could. Healing is not a skill. It's a state of being." Emily's mind was racing. This couldn't be real. People don't just heal with their hands. That was miracles. Jesus stuff. not regular people, not her. To heal is to love without expecting anything in return, Aaron said, his voice full of compassion. That's all it is. That's all it ever was. He reached out and touched her hand gently. When you held my hands just now, you weren't thinking about yourself. You weren't afraid or doubtful. You just wanted me to live. That's love, pure love, and love heals. Emily felt tears welling up again, but this time they were different. Not tears of grief or confusion, tears of recognition, of understanding. Her faith was coming back, but not the old faith, not the kind where you pray to someone far away and hope they listen. This was different. This was alive, active, real. Jesus did this, Emily whispered. Aaron nodded. Yes, Jesus showed humanity what they're capable of. The miracles weren't about him being special. They were about showing you that you are. Emily looked down at her hands again, the same hands that had held her mother's hand while she died, the same hands that had felt useless, powerless. Now she understood. The miracle wasn't outside her. It was never outside her. It was inside. It had always been inside, waiting for her to remember, waiting for her to choose love over fear. So anyone can do this? Emily asked quietly. Anyone who remembers, Aaron said. Anyone who chooses compassion over despair. Your mother, she knew this. Emily's breath hitched. What? In her final days, she wasn't praying for herself, Aaron said gently. She was praying for you to remember your light. Emily covered her mouth, sobbing. All those nights at the hospital, all those prayers she thought went unanswered. They weren't unanswered. They were just answered differently than she expected. Her mother's death hadn't been meaningless. It had broken Emily open, made space for something new, made space for this moment, for this understanding. She loved you so much, Aaron said softly. And that love, it's still here, in you, healing you, changing you. Emily cried harder, but it was a good cry, a releasing cry. All the guilt she'd carried, all the anger, all the feeling like she'd failed, it was washing away, being replaced by something better. Truth. She hadn't failed her mother. She'd honored her by continuing to care, by continuing to love, even when it hurt. This is what Jesus wanted everyone to know, Aaron said, that the power to heal, to love, to change the world, it's not reserved for the special few. It's in every single person. You just have to remember. Emily wiped her eyes and looked at Aaron. He was glowing again, healthy, strong, because of her, because of love. What do I do now? She asked quietly. Aaron smiled. You live, you love, you heal. And when others are ready, you remind them, just like I reminded you. Emily nodded slowly. She didn't fully understand everything yet, but she didn't need to. She just needed to trust. Trust in the warmth she felt in her hands. Trust in the love that had saved Aaron. Trust in the truth Jesus tried to teach 2,000 years ago. The kingdom of God is within you. And love, real, active, daily love, is the key that unlocks it. Emily had been so focused on Aaron that she forgot about the outside world. 3 days had passed since the crash. 3 days she hadn't shown up at the clinic, hadn't answered her phone, hadn't responded to texts. She knew people would worry, but she didn't expect Rachel to show up at her door. The knock came just after noon, loud and insistent. Emily, Emily, are you in there? Rachel's voice, her friend and co-worker from the clinic. Emily's stomach dropped. She looked at Aaron, who was resting peacefully on the makeshift bed. She cares about you, he said gently. You should answer. But the truth always finds its way out. Better to meet it than run from it. Emily took a deep breath, then walked to the door and opened it. Rachel stood there, worry etched on her face. She was still in her scrubs from the morning shift. Oh, thank God, Rachel said, relief flooding her features. I thought something happened to you. You haven't been answering your... She stopped mid-sentence. Her eyes had moved past Emily into the living room, to Aaron, sitting up now, watching calmly, glowing faintly blue in the afternoon light. Rachel's face went white. What is that? Rachel, wait, I can explain. But Rachel wasn't listening. Her eyes were wide with terror. She took a step back, then another. Oh my God, she whispered. Oh my God, Emily, what have you done? Rachel, please, that's not human. That's... Rachel turned and ran, down the steps, across the yard, stumbling over her own feet. Emily chased after her. Rachel, stop, just listen to me. But Rachel was already in her car, engine starting, tires squealing. She was gone before Emily could reach her. Emily stood in her driveway, breathing hard, her heart pounding. This was bad, really bad. She walked slowly back inside. Aaron hadn't moved. He just watched her with those calm, knowing eyes. "She's afraid," he said simply. "Yeah, no kidding." Emily ran her hands through her hair, trying to think. Rachel would tell people. Of course she would. And then what? Would they come looking? Would they think Emily had lost her mind? Would they try to take Aaron away? "Fear makes people dangerous," Aaron said quietly. "More dangerous than any weapon." Emily was about to respond when another knock came. Harder this time, more aggressive. "Emily Carter, open this door!" A man's voice, deep and commanding. Emily's stomach twisted. She knew that voice. Pastor Lewis. She opened the door slowly. Pastor Lewis stood there, tall and imposing. Mid-50s, gray hair, wearing his usual black suit and white collar. His face was stern. Behind him stood two other men from the church. Deacons, probably. "Pastor Lewis," Emily said carefully. "What can I do for... I heard you're harboring something demonic in this house." He cut her off. His voice was cold, accusatory. Emily felt anger flare in her chest. "Demonic?" she repeated. "You've got to be kidding me." Rachel came to me in tears. Pastor Lewis continued. "She said she saw something unholy here, something that shouldn't exist." He tried to look past her into the house. Emily blocked his view. "Rachel was scared," Emily said firmly. "But what's inside my house isn't dangerous." "Then let us see it," one of the deacons demanded. "Let us judge for ourselves." Emily's jaw tightened. Judge. That's exactly what they'd do. Judge without understanding. Condemn without listening. "No," she said quietly. "I don't think I will." Pastor Lewis's eyes narrowed. "If you have nothing to hide..." "I have nothing to hide," Emily interrupted. "But I have someone to protect." "From what?" "From fear," Emily said, looking him straight in the eye. "From people who are too afraid to see truth when it's right in front of them." Pastor Lewis's face darkened. "You're treading on dangerous ground, Emily. The Bible warns us about..." "The Bible also says not to fear," Emily shot back. "It says love casts out fear, but you're standing here full of it." The pastor's mouth opened, then closed. For a moment he seemed unsure. Then he straightened, his voice growing louder. "I will pray for you, Emily Carter. I will pray for your soul." He closed his eyes right there on her doorstep, raised his hands. "Heavenly Father, we ask for your protection over this house. We rebuke any darkness that dwells within. We call upon your holy name to..." "Love doesn't come from hell, Pastor." Emily's voice was calm, steady. The pastor stopped mid-prayer, looking at her. "What did you say?" "I said love doesn't come from hell," Emily repeated. "And what's in my house is teaching me more about love than I've learned in years of church." The pastor's face turned red. "You're being deceived. Or maybe," Emily said quietly, "I'm finally seeing clearly." She stepped back and began to close the door. "Go home, Pastor. Pray if you want, but leave me alone." She shut the door before he could respond, locked it, leaned against it, her whole body shaking. She could hear Pastor Lewis and the deacons talking outside, angry voices. Then finally the sound of car doors, engines starting. They were leaving, for now. Emily walked back to the living room. Aaron was standing now, looking out the window. "They mean well," he said softly. "Do they?" Emily asked bitterly. "Because it sure doesn't feel like it." "They're afraid," Aaron said, "and fear makes people lash out at what they don't understand." He turned to face her. "Humans fear the unknown more than death itself. It's your greatest weakness." Emily sat down heavily on the couch. Her hands were still shaking. "What do I do now?" "You do what you've been doing," Aaron said simply. "You love, you heal, you trust, and you remember that their fear is not your responsibility." Emily looked at him, this glowing, telepathic being who somehow understood humanity better than most humans did. "You're right," she said quietly. "Human fear is more dangerous than anything else." "Not fear itself," Aaron corrected gently, "but what people do with it. Fear can become wisdom if you let it teach you, or it can become violence if you let it control you." Emily nodded slowly. She thought about Pastor Lewis, about Rachel, about all the people who would hear this story and react with fear instead of curiosity, condemnation instead of compassion. And she realized something. This was what Aaron had warned her about. The purification, the choice, love or fear. Every person would have to choose. And not everyone would choose love. Some would choose fear. And that fear would divide people. Already was dividing people. I'm not afraid anymore, Emily said quietly. Aaron smiled. I know. That's why you'll be able to help others. Because you've already faced the hardest part, facing yourself. Emily sat with that for a moment. He was right. She'd spent months in fear after her mother died. Fear that nothing mattered. Fear that love was powerless. Fear that God had abandoned her. But now she knew better. Love wasn't powerless. It was the most powerful force in existence, and it had been inside her all along, waiting for her to remember. It was the third night. Emily knew before Aaron said anything. She felt it, a shift in the air, a quiet sadness settling over the house. They were sitting together in the living room. Emily had made tea. Aaron held the warm cup carefully, studying it like it was precious. I have to leave, he said finally. Emily's heart clenched. She'd known this was coming, but knowing didn't make it easier. When? She asked quietly. Soon. Tonight. Emily set her cup down. Her hands were shaking. But I still don't understand everything. I don't know how to... You don't need to understand everything, Aaron interrupted gently. Love doesn't require theory. It requires practice. Emily felt tears building. How do I keep going without you here? Aaron smiled, that peaceful, knowing smile. Emily, my mission here is finished. Now yours begins. My mission? To remember, to practice, to teach others what you've learned. He reached out and touched her forehead gently. The moment he did, images flooded Emily's mind. Not like the vision of Jesus. This was different, quieter, more intimate. She saw people, ordinary people. A woman helping a homeless man on the street, not just giving money, really seeing him, talking to him. A teacher staying late to help a struggling student, not because she had to, because she cared. A doctor kneeling beside a patient, holding their hand, praying before surgery. Children in a park, laughing, playing. One of them gently healing a bird with a broken wing. The bird flying away, whole again. Emily saw all of it. Small acts, simple acts, but each one glowing with that same golden light. This is the future, Aaron said softly. When love becomes collective action, when enough people remember, when compassion becomes the norm, not the exception. Emily saw cities lit from within, communities coming together, barriers breaking down, people choosing love over fear. Again and again and again, the world will be new, Aaron said, not through destruction, but through transformation, one heart at a time. The vision faded. Emily was back in her living room, tears streaming down her face. I want that, she whispered. I want that world. Then build it, Aaron said simply. You already have everything you need. He stood up slowly. His form was beginning to shimmer, becoming more translucent, more light than matter. Emily stood too, panic rising. Wait, I'm not ready. You are, Aaron said with certainty. You were always ready. You just needed to remember. He moved toward the door. Emily followed. Outside, the desert sky was clear, stars everywhere, bright and endless. Aaron turned to face her one last time. Thank you, Emily Carter. For what? For choosing love when it would have been easier to choose fear. For healing me. For being exactly who you are. Emily couldn't speak. Her throat was too tight. Aaron reached out and touched her heart gently. The kingdom of God is here, he said softly. Right here, in you. Never forget that. And then he stepped back. His body began to glow, brighter and brighter. Blue light, pure and beautiful. Emily had to shield her eyes. The light grew so intense it filled the entire yard, the entire street. And then, silently, gently, Aaron rose into the air. No sound, no explosion, just light, lifting upward, higher and higher, until he was just a blue star in the night sky. And then he was gone. Emily stood there, staring up at the stars, her face wet with tears, her heart full and aching at the same time. She was alone again, but not empty, not like before. Before, after her mother died, she'd felt hollow, like something essential had been carved out of her. But now she felt full of purpose, full of understanding, full of love. Aaron was gone, but what he'd taught her remained. The truth remained. that love is real, that healing is possible, that the kingdom of God isn't somewhere far away. It's here, now, in every kind gesture, in every compassionate act, in every moment someone chooses love over fear. Emily took a deep breath. The desert air was cool and clean. She felt different, changed, not broken anymore, not lost. She knew what she had to do. She had to live it, practice it, share it, one person at a time. Just like Aaron had shared it with her. Emily turned and walked back into her house. Tomorrow, she'd go back to the clinic, back to her patients. But this time, she'd bring something new with her. Not just medical knowledge, but love. Real, healing, transformative love. The kind that changes everything. The kind that Jesus tried to teach. The kind that Aaron had reminded her of. Emily smiled through her tears. Alone, yes, but not empty. Never empty again. A week passed. Emily went back to the clinic, back to her routine. But everything felt different now. She moved through her days with a quiet peace she'd never had before. The patients noticed. "You seem lighter," one elderly woman said during a checkup. Emily smiled. "I feel lighter." She didn't talk about Aaron, didn't tell anyone what had happened. Not yet. But word has a way of traveling in small towns, especially when Rachel was involved. 10 days after Aaron left, a man showed up at the clinic. Young, maybe 30, carrying a camera and a notepad. "Emily Carter?" he asked. "That's me. I'm David Chen. I work for the Flagstaff Tribune. I was hoping to ask you a few questions." Emily's stomach tightened. "Here we go. Questions about what?" David glanced around the clinic waiting room. Several patients were watching curiously. "Maybe somewhere private," he suggested. Emily led him to a small office in the back, closed the door. David sat down, pulling out his notepad. "So," he said carefully, "Rachel Morrison came to see me 3 days ago. She told me a pretty incredible story." Emily waited. "She said you're harboring, or were harboring, some kind of non-human entity in your home." David watched her face closely. Emily took a breath. She could deny it, laugh it off, call Rachel crazy. But what would be the point? The truth was the truth. Rachel saw something that scared her, Emily said carefully. But what she saw wasn't dangerous. What was it? Emily hesitated. "How do you explain Aaron to someone who wasn't there?" "A visitor," she said finally. "Someone who needed help. A visitor from where?" "Somewhere else." David leaned forward. "You mean, like an alien?" Emily met his eyes. "Yes." She expected him to laugh, to roll his eyes, to close his notepad and leave, but he didn't. Instead, he kept writing. "And this alien, what happened to it?" "He healed, and then he left." "Left to where?" "Home, I assume." David was quiet for a moment. Then he said something Emily didn't expect. "Rachel called you a visionary. She said you told her things, spiritual things, that changed how she sees the world." Emily blinked. "Rachel said that?" "Yeah. After the initial shock wore off, she came back to see me again. Said she'd been thinking about what you told her. About love, about fear, about God being inside us instead of far away." David flipped through his notes. "She said you're teaching something important, something people need to hear." Emily felt tears prick her eyes. Rachel who'd run away screaming. Rachel who'd brought the pastor to her door. Rachel was defending her now. "I'm not teaching anything new," Emily said quietly. "I'm just remembering and sharing what I remember." "Which is?" Emily thought about Aaron, about the vision of Jesus, about everything she'd learned. "That faith isn't about rules or buildings or waiting for heaven," she said slowly. "Faith is love in action. It's choosing compassion when fear would be easier." David wrote quickly. "The town is pretty divided right now," he said. "Some people think you're crazy. Others think you're onto something." "What do you think?" Emily asked. David looked up. "Honestly, I think something happened to you. Something real. And whether it was an alien or a spiritual experience or a psychological break," he shrugged. "It changed you, I can see it. Does that scare you?" "No," David said. "It intrigues me." He paused. "Are you afraid people will think you're insane?" Emily smiled. A real smile. "What's more insane?" she asked. "Believing in love and compassion, or living like nothing matters?" David stared at her. Then he smiled too. "Can I quote you on that?" "Sure." The interview went on for another hour. Emily answered every question honestly, simply. She didn't try to convince David of anything. She just told him what happened, what she learned, what she believed now. When he left, Emily felt free. She'd told the truth, and whatever happened next, happened. She couldn't control it. The article came out 2 days later. Front page of the Tribune. Local nurse claims alien encounter led to spiritual awakening. Emily read it over coffee. David had been fair. He didn't mock her, didn't sensationalize, just told her story. Within hours, the article was everywhere, shared on social media, picked up by regional news, then national. Emily's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Some calls were supportive, others were angry. People called her a liar, a heretic, a lunatic, but others called her a prophet, a healer, a messenger. Emily ignored most of it, but when people started showing up at her door, she couldn't ignore that. The first was a woman in her 50s, cancer survivor. "I read your story," she said, tears in her eyes, "and I felt something, like hope." Emily invited her in. They talked for hours, about fear, about healing, about love. When the woman left, she was smiling, really smiling. The next day, 3 more people came, then 5, then 10. People seeking healing, people seeking answers, people seeking hope. Emily saw them all, one by one. She didn't claim to have magic powers, didn't promise miracles. She just listened, held their hands, reminded them that love was real, that they had power inside them, that healing was possible. Some people felt better afterward, some didn't, but all of them left with something they didn't have before, a sense that they weren't alone, that someone saw them, that someone cared. Emily's living room became a sanctuary. People sat on her couch, drank her tea, cried, laughed, prayed, and slowly, quietly, things began to change. Not just for Emily, for the whole community. People who'd been divided by fear started talking to each other. People who'd forgotten how to hope started believing again. And Emily just kept doing what Aaron had taught her, loving, healing, practicing compassion, one person at a time. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't easy, but it was real, and it mattered. Pastor Lewis came back after a few weeks, knocked on her door. Emily opened it, surprised. "Pastor." He looked older somehow, tired. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly. Emily stepped aside. "Come in." They sat together in the living room, the same room where Aaron had healed. "I was afraid," Pastor Lewis admitted. "Afraid of what I didn't understand. Afraid it would challenge everything I believed. And now?" He smiled sadly. "Now I realize that fear was the real enemy. Not you. Not your visitor." He looked at her. "I've been watching what you're doing, how you're helping people, and I see it now." "See what?" "The love of God, working through you." Emily felt her throat tighten. "It works through everyone," she said gently. "We just have to let it." Pastor Lewis nodded. "Will you teach me?" he asked. "Help me remember what I've forgotten?" Emily smiled. "Of course." And she did. Emily's message was simple. She repeated it to everyone who came to see her. The same words Aaron had taught her, the same truth Jesus had tried to share 2,000 years ago. "Fear announces the end," she'd say, sitting across from whoever needed to hear it. "But love announces the beginning." People would lean forward, listening, really listening. "The transformation that's coming, it's not destruction," Emily continued. "It's remembering." "Remembering what?" they'd ask. "Who you really are, what you're capable of, what you've always been." She'd pause, letting it sink in. "The kingdom of God isn't up in the clouds somewhere waiting for you when you die. It's here, now, inside you." Every time she said it, people cried, not sad tears, tears of recognition, like something deep inside them was waking up, something they'd forgotten, something they'd been searching for their whole lives. "It's like," one man said, wiping his eyes, "it's like I always knew this, but I forgot." "Exactly," Emily said gently. "We all forgot, but we can remember." She spoke with such simplicity, such conviction, no fancy words, no complicated theology, just truth, plain and clear. Jesus didn't promise escape, she'd tell them. He promised presence, connection, love. He showed us that we don't have to wait for God to save us. We can participate in our own healing, in each other's healing. People asked how. How do I heal myself? How do I heal others? And Emily's answer was always the same. You choose love, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. You choose to help instead of ignore. You choose forgiveness instead of resentment. You choose compassion instead of judgment. That's it. That's the whole thing. But that sounds too simple. They'd protest. Emily would smile. The truth is always simple. We're the ones who complicate it. She'd take their hands. Healing is choosing to love even when it hurts. That's all it's ever been. Her words spread, like seeds carried on the wind. People who visited Emily went home and told their families, their friends, their co-workers. Fear announces the end, but love announces the beginning. The phrase showed up on social media, on bumper stickers, in church sermons and school assemblies. The kingdom of God is inside us. People wrote it on sticky notes and put them on their mirrors. Tattoo artists inked it on skin. Teachers wrote it on whiteboards. Jesus didn't promise escape. He promised presence. The message wasn't new, but it felt new. Because people were finally ready to hear it, finally ready to remember. The clinic where Emily worked started offering meditation sessions, prayer circles. Support groups focused on forgiveness and healing. Other nurses and doctors noticed something changing. Patients were recovering faster, responding better to treatment. Some who'd been given months to live were thriving years later. "What are you doing differently?" her supervisor asked. Emily shrugged. "I'm just present. I see them. I love them. That's it? That's everything." The desert, both literal and metaphorical, was changing. Flagstaff had always been a harsh place. Beautiful, but harsh. Dry, unforgiving. But now there was softness, kindness spreading like water through cracked earth. People who'd been strangers started talking. Neighbors helped each other. The homeless were fed and housed. The sick were visited and cared for. Not because of laws or programs, but because people remembered. They remembered how to love. And the change was real, measurable. Crime dropped. Suicide rates fell. Community centers filled with volunteers. It wasn't perfect. There was still pain, still struggle. But now there was also hope. Real hope. The kind that gets you out of bed in the morning. The kind that makes you try one more time. The kind that believes tomorrow can be better. And it started with one person, one nurse in a small desert town, who met an alien, saw a vision, and remembered what everyone had forgotten, that love is real, that healing is possible, that God, whatever you call it, isn't far away. It's here, in every kind word, in every gentle touch. In every moment we choose compassion over cruelty. The kingdom isn't coming. It's here. It's always been here. We just needed someone to remind us. And Emily did. One conversation at a time. One healed heart at a time. One person remembering at a time. Until the desert bloomed. Not with flowers, but with something better. With love. The clinic was different now. Anyone could feel it the moment they walked through the door. Something had shifted. The air felt lighter, warmer. Like the building itself had learned to breathe. Emily came back to work 2 weeks after the article published. She'd needed time to process everything, time to figure out what came next. But when she walked through those doors again, she knew this was where she belonged, not hiding from the world, but serving it. The staff noticed immediately. "Emily," Dr. Patel said, pulling her aside. "You look different." Emily smiled. "I feel different." "Good different. Very good different." Dr. Patel studied her face. "Whatever happened to you out there, keep it, because you're glowing." And she was. Not literally like Aaron, but there was something radiant about her now, a peace that people could feel. Patients noticed it too. Mrs. Chen, an elderly woman with chronic pain, grabbed Emily's hand during a routine checkup. "I feel better when you're near," she said softly. "Like the pain doesn't hurt as much." Emily squeezed her hand gently. "That's love working," she said simply. "It's always been there. You're just noticing it now." Word spread among the staff. The nurses started gathering before shifts, not for coffee or gossip, for prayer. Simple prayers, nothing formal, just a moment of quiet, a collective intention to help, to heal, to love. Dr. Patel joined them one morning, then Dr. Rodriguez, then the entire day shift. They'd stand in a circle, holding hands, and Emily would say something simple. "We're here to serve, to love, to remember that healing is sacred. Let's be present today." Really present. That was it. No long sermons, no complicated rituals, just presence, intention, love, and the results were undeniable. Patients who'd been resistant to treatment started improving. People who'd given up hope started fighting again. Recovery times shortened. Pain decreased. "It's like a miracle," one of the nurses whispered. Emily shook her head. "It's not a miracle. It's remembering. We're finally doing what we were always meant to do, which is loving people while we heal them." The change wasn't just in the clinic, it rippled outward. Doctors started spending more time with patients, really listening, not just checking symptoms off a list. Nurses held hands during difficult procedures, offered comfort, not just medication. The janitors smiled more. The receptionists greeted people with genuine warmth. It was like the whole building had remembered its purpose, not just to treat illness, but to care for humans, whole humans, body, mind, and spirit. One afternoon, Pastor Lewis showed up. Emily was in the break room, eating a sandwich. She looked up, surprised. "Pastor?" He stood in the doorway, looking uncomfortable. "May I come in?" "Of course." He sat down across from her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Pastor Lewis said something Emily never expected. "I've been watching you." Emily raised an eyebrow. "That sounds creepy." He laughed, a real laugh. "Not like that. I mean, I've been watching what you do here, how you help people." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I was wrong about you, Emily, about what happened." Emily set down her sandwich. "You were scared. That's understandable." "It was more than fear," Pastor Lewis admitted. "It was pride. I thought I had all the answers, that my way was the only way." He looked at her with humility she'd never seen in him before. "But I've seen the good you do, the way people change around you, the healing that happens." His voice grew thick with emotion. "That's divine. That's God working through you." Emily felt tears prick her eyes. "It works through everyone," she said gently. "Through you too. Through all of us." "Then why don't I see it like you do?" "Because you're looking in the wrong place," Emily said. "Jesus never left the world, Pastor. He just left our habits." Pastor Lewis blinked. "What do you mean?" "We turned faith into rules and buildings and rituals," Emily explained. "We made it complicated, distant, something you do on Sundays." She leaned forward. "But Jesus was teaching something simpler, that God is here now, in how we treat each other. Love thy neighbor." "Exactly. Not as a commandment to obey, but as a reality to live." Pastor Lewis was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Will you come speak at the church?" Emily hesitated. "I'm not a preacher." "No," he agreed. "You're something better. You're living it." Emily thought about it, about all the people who needed to hear this. Not just the ones who came to her house, but the ones still sitting in pews, waiting for answers. "Okay," she said finally. "I'll come." And she did. The following Sunday, Emily stood at the pulpit. The church was packed. Some people came to support her. Others came to judge. Emily didn't care. She just spoke from the heart. "Faith isn't something you believe in," she said simply. "It's something you practice, every day, in small ways. It's helping someone who can't help you back. It's forgiving when you'd rather hold a grudge. It's choosing love when fear would be easier." She looked out at the congregation, faces young and old, skeptical and hopeful. Jesus showed us how to live, not how to wait for heaven. He healed people, fed people, loved people. That's faith, active, present, real. People were crying, not because Emily was eloquent, but because she was honest. "Each time you heal someone with love," Emily continued, "you prove the prophecy, that love sustains life, that compassion changes everything, that the kingdom of God is here, now, in us." When she finished, the church was silent. Then Pastor Lewis stood and started clapping. Soon everyone joined, not because Emily had entertained them, but because she'd reminded them of something they'd forgotten. That faith is supposed to be lived, not just believed. After that Sunday, things changed even more. The church started offering free medical clinics. Food drives became weekly, not monthly. Volunteers flooded the homeless shelter. Prayer groups formed, not just to pray, but to act, to go into the community and help, feed, clothe, comfort, love in action. And every person who practiced it felt the same thing Emily felt. That glow, that peace, that sense of purpose. They were finally doing what they were meant to do, living their faith instead of just talking about it. And the more they did it, the more they understood. This was the prophecy Aaron spoke of. Not fire and brimstone, not judgment day, but awakening. Humanity remembering its purpose, to love, to heal, to lift each other up. Emily watched it all unfold with quiet gratitude. She didn't take credit, didn't seek recognition. She just kept doing what Aaron had taught her, one person at a time, one act of love at a time. And slowly, beautifully, the world around her changed, not because of miracles, but because of practice. Daily, humble, powerful practice. Love really was the energy that sustained life. She could see it now, in every healed patient, in every restored relationship, in every act of kindness that rippled outward. Love was real, measurable, undeniable, and it was changing everything. 1 year later, Emily found herself back in the desert, the same desert where it all began. She'd driven out alone, not because she was running away, but because she needed to say thank you. The sky was clear, perfect and endless. Stars scattered across the darkness like diamonds, and there, in the distance, a single blue star, brighter than the others, pulsing gently. Emily smiled. She knew. She parked her car and walked out into the sand. The night air was cool, peaceful. She found a spot and sat down, cross-legged like she used to as a child. Emily closed her eyes, breathed in the desert air, and just sat. In the silence, she felt them, both of them. Aaron's presence, gentle, knowing, proud, and Jesus, warm, infinite, loving, not as separate beings, but as one truth, one energy, one love. Tears rolled down Emily's cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered into the night. "Thank you for giving me back my faith." For a moment, nothing, just wind and stars and silence. Then Aaron's voice, soft in her mind. "You healed your own faith, Emily." Emily smiled through her tears. "I couldn't have done it without you. You could have. You just needed permission to remember." She opened her eyes, looked up at that blue star. "I see it now," she said. "Everything you tried to teach me. Tell me. I want to hear it in your words." Emily took a breath. Faith isn't believing in something far away. It's loving what's right in front of you. Yes. Healing isn't magic. It's choosing compassion over fear. Yes. And God. Emily paused, finding the right words. God isn't watching us from heaven, waiting to judge. God is in us, moving through us. Every time we choose love, the presence around her swelled, warm and affirming. "That's the final lesson," Aaron said. "Faith is the act of loving when no one is watching. Healing begins when fear ends, and those who heal with love, they participate in the return of Christ." Emily let those words sink in. The return of Christ, not a man descending from clouds, but humanity waking up, remembering, choosing love collectively instead of individually. When enough people practiced compassion, when enough hearts opened, when love became the norm instead of the exception, that was the return. That was the kingdom. Not later. Now. We're building it, aren't we? Emily said softly. The kingdom. Here. Together. Yes. One heart at a time. One act of love at a time. Emily thought about the past year. The clinic. The church. The community. All the people who'd remembered. Who'd chosen love over fear. Who were healing themselves and each other. It was working. Slowly. Imperfectly. But undeniably. What happens next? Emily asked. You keep going. Keep loving. Keep teaching. And when you're tired, remember, you're never alone. Every person who chooses love adds their light to yours. And together, you'll illuminate the world. Emily felt overwhelming gratitude, not just for Aaron, not just for the vision, but for everything. The pain that broke her open, the loss that made space for new understanding, the fear that taught her the value of courage. All of it had led her here, to this moment, to this truth. I understand now, Emily whispered. Why you came, why you showed me what you did. Why? Because someone had to remember first. Someone had to start the ripple. And you were ready. Emily nodded. She was ready then, and she was ready now. Ready to keep going, keep loving, keep reminding others of what they'd forgotten. The blue star pulsed brighter, then began to fade, not disappearing, just receding. Goodbye, Emily Carter. Goodbye, Aaron. Thank you for everything. No, thank you. And then he was gone. The star blended back into the countless others. Emily sat there for a long time, just being, just breathing, just feeling gratitude for this strange, beautiful, impossible life. When she finally stood and walked back to her car, she felt complete. not finished, but whole. She drove home slowly, watching the desert pass by her windows, thinking about tomorrow, about the patients she'd see, the people she'd help, the love she'd share. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't easy, but it was real, and it mattered. Every single day, it mattered. When Emily got home, she made tea, sat on her porch, looked up at the stars, and smiled, because she finally understood the biggest truth of all. Faith isn't about knowing all the answers. It's about loving all the questions. Healing isn't about fixing everything. It's about being present for anything. And God was never far away. God was right here, in her hands, in her heart, in every choice she made to love instead of fear. The kingdom of heaven wasn't coming. It was here. It had always been here, waiting for humanity to remember. And now, one person at a time, they were. Emily closed her eyes, whispered one final prayer, not asking for anything, just offering gratitude for life, for love, for second chances, for aliens who teach us about Jesus, for losses that lead to finding, for fear that transforms into faith, for everything, all of it, the good and the hard and the impossible. All of it mattered. All of it was divine. All of it was love. And love, Emily knew now, was all that ever mattered, the only thing that ever would.